you, man.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Chill with Gilbert Arenas. Now, today we've got a certified bucket getter, two-time Big Ten Player of the Year, National Player of the Year in '92, fourth overall pick by the Mavs, set an NBA record or tied a record playing with 12 different teams in 14 seasons in the league. Now he's one of the best basketball analysts in the game, college, NBA, whatever you want. I remember you as Jimmy Jackson back in the day, but I know you had to become professional and go with the Jim Jackson now, man. So we appreciate you.
No, thanks for having me, G. Thanks for having me, bro. As long as you don't call me James, that's all right. That's when you're old.
My favorite thing about you, you're one of the first dudes when I was a little kid that I actually got to watch hoop, and I didn't know much about Ohio State back then, but watching y'all in the tournament. But you used to have the part, and it used to just be so pristine. And I used to try to give myself one, and it never worked out like that.
You know where we got it from, though? It was funny because back in the day, Larry Johnson used to have one down the middle.
Yeah.
So it was funny because our barber on campus, and a lot of people to this day still come back and say, man, y'all had some of the dopest haircuts because we was always edged up. But it was one barber who did us all. But a lot of it, too, came from watching Larry because I tried to get a part down my junior year, down the middle because of Larry Johnson, right down the middle.
Grandmama. I remember Marbury was doing it too, and I tried to, in like ninth grade, tried to give him
come across,
but I kept messing it up, so I had to make it wider, and I just had to shave my joint off. So you tied the NBA record with playing with 12 teams. I want to ask you, can you name all those teams in order?
Of course.
All right.
That's easy. All them checks came in that order too.
What's the order?
The Mavericks.
Okay.
Okay. Then went to New Jersey.
Okay.
From there to Philly.
Yep.
Philly to Golden State.
Yep.
So Golden State, I went to Portland.
Yep.
Portland went to Atlanta. Atlanta went to Cleveland. Cleveland to Miami. Miami, Sacramento. Sacramento, Houston. Houston to Phoenix. LA.
He got it.
You know how many times I've been asked that question?
Okay, but I got to make sure.
That's like
so
clockwork.
Of those 12 teams, what was your favorite spot to be in?
I mean, it's a twofold question because you understand when you first come in the league, you're excited about that first team you play on because that's where you kind of get your feet wet and you learn about what the NBA is about. Unfortunately for me, when I got to Dallas, our roster wasn't built like that back then. When I finally came in off my holdout, I got the longest holdout ever, also to another record.
Yeah, for sure.
For in the NBA, they only won 4 games. So my first year, only playing 28 games, we won 7 games. The next year, we only won 13. And this is, at that time where, as a young player, you're excited about being in the league, but then you losing every month. It's basically 2 wins a month. So I enjoyed my time when I was in Dallas and we started to turn it around, but the lack of winning kind of dampers whatever you do. Because you see everybody else, your boys, they winning and they in the playoffs and they doing stuff, and you can't do it. And unfortunately, I didn't get to the playoffs until I was 98, 99 season in Portland with Rashid and Bonzi was a rookie. But Stacey Augmon, Arvydas Sabonis, D. Stoudemire, that whole crew, Walt Williams, that was the first test of the playoffs. And I was emotional because it took me so long to get there. And you always say, gee, you know this, when you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different
game.
Whole different game. But you don't know that. You don't know that until you get there. And that kind of got me back in it. But what I really fell in love with the game again was when I went to Sacramento. And I was a free agent. I played with C-Webb, with Vlade, with Mike, Bibby, Bobby. Paid that crew.
Yeah.
For whatever it was, man, it made me fall in love with the game again. Just because of the personalities. Rick Adelman was great, the head coach. And how everybody played. We hung out together. We did stuff together. On the road, we went to Raider games. That made me fall back in love with the game.
As a vet, super vet, now that you see the way the NBA is playing out, should more responsibility on teams not making it, teams failing, should be more on the owners?
In regards to what? Like not being as successful?
Yes, not building a team, not understanding the players, not understanding who plays well with who.
Yeah.
Like, because it seemed like it was more of a business back then.
It still is. It's a different business now.
It's a different business now.
And it's true because, Gilbert, you know this, it goes both ways. You've been in different organizations where one operates better than the other. One understands, the biggest part is scouting and your player development. Okay? Because if you're not in the draft every year, you got to be able to scout and get talent in, and talent that you can groom. And then when you get young talent, how do you develop that young talent? So yes, management has a huge responsibility of that, but then also it trickles down to the players, because right now you came in on the front end of the social media.
Yeah.
I'm on the front end of it, older though. These young men have a lot to deal with on that side of it. So are they really as serious about the game, or is it more about the lifestyle and what they got, or trying to achieve through playing basketball? So it's a balance between, is it the management's responsibility, but also the players have to hold themselves to a higher accountability to make sure their job gets done too.
But okay, so when I first came into the league, like I love Golden State, right? Like,
For what reason?
Huh?
For what reason?
Just the people. Everyone was nice. I mean, it was. But thinking back on it, as a young player, there was no grooming.
Right.
You got to remember, as a young player, this is what I try to tell older guys too. I said, you got to understand, when you're 18, 19, coming into the NBA, you got to remember, I'm in the era where high school kids was coming in.
Yeah.
You know, so my draft was the first draft of all the high school kids. So, you know, the first damn near 20 picks, everybody's 20 and under. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You got 18, like I'm 2 years, and I'm 19 when I'm coming into the draft. So I'm like, well, I'm a young kid too. What are we looking at?
Yeah.
Right? When we're coming into the league, and I had to explain this to, you know, rest in peace, A. Poland. I said, as a 19, 20-year-old, what do you think we eat like?
Yeah.
What do you think we're eating? You think we got wives sitting here speaking? No, we eat McDonald's fast food. We don't know. So you have to introduce that to us. You have to put a players lounge in here so we can stay longer. You have to get chefs. You actually have to do that. Who cares what you're paying us? We don't know how to do it. Yeah. So coming in as a player, we don't know how to train. I'm coming here looking at you like, oh, he got the hat. I'm about to go to the store. I'm trying to do what the veteran does.
Yep.
Not knowing that the veteran has been here 6, 8 years. Yeah. So he's already done his time of being great. I don't know that. I'm following him as I see him. So like Allen Iverson, they're following the Allen Iverson as they see Allen Iverson. They're not looking at the one that crossed Jordan up. They don't get to see that one. Yeah. They don't see none of that. So I say the responsibility has to be on the ownership sometimes too, because you still have to mold them. Yeah. If not, they're just gonna fall in line. They're, like if he works out for 30 minutes, 30 minutes, that's it. Yeah. Like he's great, 30 minutes. You know, not knowing that there's a reason he still don't have a jump shot. Well, he's not putting in the 5-6 hours he needs to.
You know what? And I get that too, because I was fortunate when I came into Dallas, Derek Harper was there, Terry Davis, but Harp really kind of set the tone, you know, as far as how to be a professional, how to play. And one thing they told me that always stuck out, I said, listen, bro, you can come in and hang out and do all that, but if you don't take care of your business, on the court and practice in the game, you need to stop doing it. Not that I was hanging out, but they were setting ground rules for me on how to be a pro. The challenge now is, and it goes back to your point, is that the league is trending younger. So you don't have those established vets in a lot of these organizations that can tell these young men what it's like to be a pro. Because like you said, they don't know. At 19 years old, you don't have a clue unless you grew up around some guys who've done it. I was fortunate, Oak, Harp, D-Hop, these were my guys when I was growing up. So I got an idea of what it was like. But until I got there, and had to live that life and had to make those decisions, I leaned on my old heads to kind of give me that. But to your point, okay, so I guess the resolution is, okay, for an organization, what can they do? Because players got to be willing to listen, first of all. And if it's coming from the organization, they might not be as open to it because it's coming from them. That's why you got to keep some veterans in the locker room.
And bring some veterans back.
And bring them back. Because that part of that voice of reason, like Udonis Haslem, okay?
That is perfect.
When he's talking in the huddle or doing something in practice, all eyes, ears are on him. Because that's what he brings to the table. That's the level of respect. And when you don't have that, you got young guys, young men trying to make decisions on things they don't know about yet. So I get your point on that.
Yeah, because I've always had a problem with it, like I was more of a jokester, but I was serious when I used to say it.
Right.
You know, I'm listening to, you know, the assistant coaches or player development coaches, whatever they were when I came in, the guys who just used to hang out with the players for the girls and then and then tell on us to the coaching staff.
Right.
So they'd be like, yo, hey man, you need to, you know, pass the ball, do this. And I'd just be like, yo, hey, how much did you average? And they'd be like, 7. I'm not listening to you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and they like realizing that's true. If you wasn't a superstar, how are you gonna actually tell me to be one? How are you gonna direct me in that? You know, so it's like, yo, why is Scottie Pippen back? Why ain't, you know, Allen Iverson back? Like, because you're looking at a guy who was in his 20s, right? Partying, hanging out, doing all the fun shit. Well, he's 40-something now. That's not the same guy.
Yeah.
But now he can tell this group not to go that way.
Exactly.
And I think that's what they miss. Like, you're looking at the guy of what he was, not what he's become. And it's like they miss it. It's like, you guys make so much money and you just miss basic.
Well,
common
but it's the
sense.
field too, because in the world of analytics now, it's numbers driven, and which I'm fine. When I played for Pat Riley, he was analytics, but it wasn't as detailed because he wrote down and everything. He measured, you know, from your palm to your fingertip, the length. He did everything, body fat. Plus minus for the game. He was huge on that, but it wasn't as deep as it is now. So I think there's a balance between like analytics and having the eye and feel of of how people mesh. Because one thing analytics cannot do and cannot dictate is how you and I are going to get along. Our numbers may say we do, but personality-wise, analytics can't teach you that. That's why you need somebody that's on that staff, in that organization, that has the eyes, that has the feel, that has the experience to know kind of personalities can fit. And that's what you're talking about with coaches too on the staff. Some coaches you listen to because you know, they know. Then some you just like, man, stop it. I get what you're doing, but
Just stop.
just stop, man. You know what I mean? It is like that.
And then that coach becomes a head coach
Oh,
one
big time.
day.
Or GM. Or GM
You
down
be
the
like,
line.
what?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody listen to this
Yeah.
dude right here, bro. Get him out of here.
Yeah, I was there.
I'm not going to ask y'all specifics, but
But
I
no,
know.
but a prime example of a guy that got it, that worked. When I was in Miami, Eric Spoelstra was ahead of the film. Okay, he did all that stuff, but he was always Eric hooped. Eric was in my people don't know. Eric was in my draft class in '92.
Oh, bro.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So he hooped. He didn't make it to the league, but his grind was different. So you trusted when he started to get into the coaching circle because of the work you saw him put in. And then he still got questioned when LeBron came, of course. But post that, there's an example of a guy that kind of came up, that grinded, players respected, and now is probably one of the top 5, 6 coaches, X's and O's, whatever it is, you know, in the league.
I haven't got dressed up in a while for obvious reasons, but I had to go out to a nice dinner the other night. And I looked, and nobody would deny this, sexy as hell, in my new Indochino shirt and slacks. I bought my Indochino shirt online and got it delivered straight to my front door. I went with the Hayton white blue shirt, added a pocket, and to repeat the obvious, I looked and felt amazing. Indochino offers completely custom fitted suits, shirts, casual wear, and more at surprisingly affordable prices. Every piece is made to your exact measurements, and you can customize every detail. Choose everything about your suit from the fabric, lapel, monogram, and a statement linings. You can create a suit that fits you and your style perfectly. Indochino is now at select Nordstrom stores, giving you even more ways to get great fitting personalized clothing. Find your nearest location at Indochino.com. Right now, you can get $50 off any purchase of $399 or more by using code NOCHILL at checkout. That's $50 off a purchase of $399 or more at Indochino.com. Promo code NOCHILL. This episode of the No Chill podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life can be crazy, trust me, I know, which is why BetterHelp was created. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log in to your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. So you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. As with traditional therapy, BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/no-chill. That's better, HELP, and join over 2 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. Special offer for No Chill listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/no-chill.
So how hard is it for both you guys, if you're playing with a coach who's never hooped before, to have that respect, or never hooped at a high level? You said Spoelstra hooped when he's coming in. How difficult is it for you to listen to what that guy's saying, knowing like, yo, you've never done this?
Well, it's not that. Here's the thing. It's for me, do you put us in a situation where we can be successful? Whether you can hoop or not is one thing. But do you see the game and understand the flow of the game and these individuals to put us in a situation where we can be successful? I don't know if Rick Adelman hooped at a high level, but as far as X's and O's and giving us a chance to win and to allow guys to be them, well, I had the ultimate amount of respect for him, for him. Now, Phil Jackson may be a little different. I went to the end of my career. I didn't really play. I ain't really like Phil. You know what I'm saying? And he won a championship with New York.
Yeah.
It just depends on the situation. You know what I'm saying?
That's usually how it is.
I'm telling you.
Did he play me? If he didn't play me, the nigga was horrible.
It was horrible, right?
Coach.
Yeah. But I love a coach. Here's the thing. I love a coach and an organization. Just be 100. Mm-hmm. One of the best things, two times this happened to me. Jersey, the year Keith Van Horn came out, we had just got traded from Dallas. John Calipari was there. Me, Sam Cassell, Chris Gatling, all these guys, we were there. After the season, it was a big thing where Keith Van Horn didn't want to go to Philly. So they were going to make a trade. So they traded him to Jersey. Well, here's Calipari calling me like, yo, we got to make a trade. I'm like, okay. He said, Larry Brown wants you in Philly. We don't want to do the deal. We tried to offer up this, but we getting the first pick. I was like, bro, I can't be mad at you. You about to get the first pick. Mm-hmm. But at least he picked up the phone and called me, was honest. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, Pat Riley, I was a free agent that year, went, played well. After the season, he called me and said, listen, I want you to come back. You deserve to start. You played well for us, but I just drafted these two young guys, Dwayne Wade, Caron Butler. I got to see if they can play. You got a spot here if you want to come back as a free agent. Open door. But you should test the market and see where you can go. I love that. Because you know why? He gave it to me real. And he allowed me to make a decision. A lot of times, G, coaches, organizations will tell you one thing, but then totally do the opposite. Give you that pump fake. Good pump fake.
Good pump fake.
Good pump fake.
The good one.
Good
Give me the good one, too.
Right?
Ooh. So I got more NBA stuff for you, but first off, I want to take it back to 1989. Senior year of high school, McDonald's All-American game. You link up with Shaq. Now, you said, I saw an interview, you said y'all almost got booted from the game. So I want to know, I want to know, how turned up were y'all out there in Kansas City as seniors in high school?
Shaq actually talks about that to this day because we went to back then, this is old school, Tony Tone concert at Kemper Arena, right? Yeah. Met some girls, invited them back to the hotel, which you couldn't do. And at that time, at 17, 18 years old, you can't be quiet. You're noisy. You know what I mean? Giggling, laughing, just talking loud. Somebody told security, and they came up to the room. Girls in the room. We almost got kicked out of the McDonald's game because of that.
So what I want to know is, how did y'all end up at the Tony concert? Because this is back in the day. You didn't really have cell phones.
No, they set it up.
Okay,
so the McDonald's people set it up
plugged
so
y'all
we can
with
have
that.
an experience at Kemper Arena. So they had a suite there, I believe it was, and they put us all in there so we could go to the concert.
And how did you and Shaq end up? Obviously, there's a lot of guys there. How did you and Shaq? And this is like, back in the days when dudes weren't really, AAU-wise. You were playing in kind of your own home city, home state.
But you know what's interesting about Shaq, though? So Kenny Anderson was number 1 in our class, and I was number 2, right, coming out. The reason why Shaq wasn't is because in Texas at the time, he couldn't play at a 5-star, a Nike camp, because there was some Texas rule where he couldn't play outside of the state and still be eligible, like in these camps.
Yeah.
So people heard about Shaq, but until we played, it was a game in Pittsburgh called Dapper Dan. That's when Shaq really blew up. He rebounded coast to coast, boom. That's when and then the McDonald's game was after that. Through the grapevine, people heard about him, but the national publications didn't have him because he wasn't at the Nikes, at the 5-star, stuff like that. But that's how we connected, was at the Dapper Dan game in Pittsburgh.
Wait. He didn't leave. He didn't leave Texas. He was still a McDonald's All-American?
Bro. Yeah, I mean, he was so dominant. But again, like Kenny Anderson and I, we played in the Beach Ball Classic our senior year. We were at Nike camp together. We were at Blue Chip. We were at 5-star. So, when you were doing the write-ups, everybody saw you. You were on the scene a lot, AAU. But Shaq wasn't, But you fast forward, duh. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The best one that came out in 89.
Just that ruling, just a high school ruling.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A guy like that, but that's how we connected.
So you mentioned Kenny Anderson. I know y'all took the recruiting trip to Syracuse together. Y'all were going to play together. If y'all would have ended up teaming up, is that the best college backcourt ever?
I don't know, but it would have been. I wasn't going to Syracuse. It was too cold, bro. I ain't lying, man. Gil, we evaluate stuff on dumb stuff. You know what I mean? That's just dumb.
That's real.
I mean, because Syracuse was. I grew up a Big East fan. Derek Coleman. So I grew up in Toledo, which is an hour from Detroit, and I used to go to play in Detroit all the time. DC, Smitty, all these guys. So when I took my visit, DC was my host. And I was like, man, it's cool, this Syracuse. Nothing there. It was cold. I was like, man, I don't know about this, bro. And I don't mind leaving home, but the funny part is back then, we ain't had cell phones.
That's what.
So Kenny calls me. I'm at the house, and he says, I'm going to Georgia Tech. I was like, man, where'd that come from? He never talked about Georgia Tech. Never. Now he says, his mom, rest in peace, said that because of Crimmins, she trusted Crimmins, and this is where you're going. He had no choice. I said, it could have been some other kind of influence, but I don't know. But all of a sudden, it came out of nowhere.
Going to Georgia Tech. What's so funny is growing up, I wish I was left-handed. Because the move he did on Bobby Hurley,
behind the back.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to do it and trying to get the little flow with the left hand. And I was like, back then I was like, how do I do it right? So I got to slow it up because back then, there was no internet.
No.
So I had to do, it was All-Star Jam. It was All-Star Jam, DVD, not DVDs, but VHS, $5, $5.99 at Foot Locker. So I used to have all of them, just boom. That's how I used to work my game.
Right.
Snap it in, boom, rewind, all right, rewind, write the move down, all right, okay, boom, boom, boom. Because I remember I was a Tim Hardaway fan.
You get the crossover?
Right? What? What? Until my arms grew. And then, for some reason, it was slower.
Yeah.
It was just slower, just my arms. Then when AI came out, that's my style.
Because he was longer.
Yeah, he was longer.
I'm going to tell you something about Kenny. Yeah, and how popular LeBron was when he came out. You can't imagine it, but Kenny Anderson, from the time he was a freshman in high school, you understand it was our time. Mm-hmm. If you would have had internet back then and kind of social media, I'm not going to say he would have been the equivalent to LeBron, but he would have been damn near close. Because of what he was able to do in New York as a freshman point guard all the way through. Mm-hmm. I mean, the aura of Kenny through high school. So you had Alonzo Mourning, Marcus Liberty, all these guys that were ahead of him. Like they were class of 87, 88. But it was always a buzz about Kenny because he was this New York guard lefty, freshman starting. If people don't realize how of a kind of a legend Kenny was in the mystery around him because you couldn't see him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He played with the Gauchos. You only time you saw him when he went to camp. In our senior year, he couldn't come to Nike because he had to go to summer school. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, no, my junior year.
Yeah.
My junior year, he had to go to summer school. That was the Alonzo Mourning, Sean Kemp, Chris Jackson, that Lee Mayberry. That was that class. So he couldn't come that summer. The next year he did come, him and Bobby Hurley, they screwed off. It wasn't even a contest, bro. It wasn't even a contest.
So let's move it ahead to 92. You get drafted 4th overall to the Mavs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Shaq, Zoe, Christian Laettner go before you. They kind of get their deals in place. The Mavs come to you with their offer. What's your initial reaction? Obviously, they give you the janky contract, try to get you to take the low ball deal. What's your initial reaction when you know you have this high of getting drafted and now you see the actual deal that's in place? What's going through your head at that point?
I'm going to ask Gilbert this. What was your aha NBA moment? What was your aha NBA moment? Like, I'm here, I'm in the league.
When I made my layup,
In your first game?
I made my first game where they couldn't take it back. Where it was like, I made it. I made my layup. It was against Cleveland. Stole the ball, 2 points. And I'm sitting there like, yes, you can't take this back. You can't preseason. You can't take these 2 points back. That was my actual like I made 2 free throws in Cleveland before and then Toronto, but my first layup, because I wanted to dunk that.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to guarantee too. Yeah. So that was like my moment of like, you know what, I'm actually here because I wasn't drafted where I was. So, you know, my whole draft experience wasn't the same. Like I can't even watch draft night because of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this.
Well, my aha was going through my contract negotiation in the business of basketball. Because at that time, you don't have a rookie salary cap like you do now, where you just slot it in. It was a market value system. First pick, second pick, third pick, and so on. So what happened was, I'm the 4th pick, Christian signs, and then later on, LaFonso Ellis, who's at 5, signs. So, but the Mavericks, because 2 drafts before was Randy White, who was supposed to be the next Karl Malone, then Doug Smith from Detroit, played in Missouri. They got drafted and didn't kind of pan out, I guess. So the Mavericks were holding that against me. We're like, we don't know if we want to pay a guard this amount of money. So my agent and I are talking about, you know, the options on what you have to do in order to get your contract. So, you know, as the summer goes on, you're just sitting there like, oh, they gonna come in, you know. As we get closer to training camp, they're not budging. And they're trying to pay me what the 8th pick got, which I think was Latrell. So I made a decision based on all of what the information my agent was giving me that I wasn't going to take less than what the market was, because short term it affects me. Short term it affects the next pick next year at the 4th pick, which is Jamal Mashburn. I didn't know that, but the 4th pick. And long term it hurts me if I get a contract down the line because I settle for less early. So I'm dealing with all this, but I want to hoop. But at the same time, I'm stubborn and I don't want them getting over on me. This is when I knew. I'm holding out. All this chatter about why he holding out, he greedy, you should just go ahead and sign and play. I'm like, man, y'all crazy. Why should I hold out less because of what they did? I'm on the plane and I'm still in Columbus working out in Ohio. Donald Carter flies in, picks me up, flies me around Columbus, trying to tell me why they don't want to pay me. And my agent was like, you want me to go? I said, no, I got this, I'm good. And I said, well, you don't want to pay me, but Kenny Anderson went number 2 last year as a guard. So I don't understand that. And they said, well, we're willing to give you $1 million signing bonus right now. You take the contract, right? Young brother, I ain't had no money. Now, they ain't know I had Nike money and my car deal money, so I'm sitting on something that I'm cool with. But I sat there and I thought about it and I said, you know, Mr. Carter, no disrespect, but I ain't never had $1 million, so I don't know what I'm missing. But what I'm not gonna do is settle for less than what my market value is. So if you don't wanna pay me, that's your option. Trade the pick. If not, I'm just gonna re-enter the draft next year, but I'm not gonna sign for less. That was my line of demarcation right there, where I was just like, he thinks he's gonna come in here with $1 million check because I'm young, don't know no better, and go take it and sign for less. I was like, and I had to deal with the ramifications of holding out, okay? No rook. Now, Doug Christie and I are tied together because Doug held out too. From Seattle, got drafted by Seattle, eventually got to the Lakers. So he signed probably in January. I was out to February. But that was my moment of, oh, this is what the NBA is. you know? And now, whether that they held that against me throughout my career, maybe. Because the only reason I got my money and they came in, and this is what I say about the Ben Simmons situation and what's going on. You don't know the backside conversations on what's going on. We can always talk about it, but we don't know. I played 28 games my rookie year. The Mavs paid me all my money. The question is why? It's because we were about to have a collusion lawsuit against the NBA for David Stern telling these teams that you don't pay these rookies these contracts. You can't do that. But nobody knew that this was going on. But all the chatter was, why is he holding out? Why is this? Why? I'm like, y'all don't even know what's going on in this circle. So finally, I signed and they had to pay me all my money. So we're at the press conference and everybody's laughing and, we happy to have you in. And the coaches is up there and I'm sitting there like, man, if I ain't had this lawsuit, I'd still be in Columbus. But that was, people don't understand what that ordeal is like I was 22, but dealing with the business side of the NBA. Early. Did it taint me? Yeah, because now I didn't trust a lot of people. I didn't trust the general manager. I didn't trust the owners. Because I knew what they said one thing and the backside what they really thought. You know what I mean? And it was great for me, but it hurt me too.
Do you feel like the league and the media kind of portrayed you a certain type of way? Nowadays, we see player empowerment and everything, and that's what everybody's big on. But back then, you coming in 22 years old, how dare you not take all these millions of dollars we're offering you? How do you feel like that impacted you then and the rest of your career?
It was interesting because I love to shoot pool. So I was at a pool hall in Columbus where I'm holding out. I used to go there every night, old head shooting, just because I needed to do something outside of basketball. And I'm watching, it was TNT. Man, Magic on there, somebody else. They questioning what I'm doing. They ain't got a clue what's going on. Media. So they're sitting there trying to talk for me when they don't have an idea of what we're negotiating and why we're doing it. That's why I'm very careful when I'm on TV or speaking, not to put myself in that situation where I don't know the information or comment on something about somebody's decision-making without having the full breadth of what's going on. So they painted me as this outlier in regards to greedy. Why don't you just sign? Take care of this. You're a rookie. And I'm like, no, it ain't that. All you got to do is give me my money. It's real simple. I'm the fourth pick. I'm not going to take I'm not asking more than Christian, but I damn sure ain't taking less than the Fonzo got. So in my mind, I'm like, what is the problem? What's the argument? So you want me to settle for less. That's the argument when people always say, well, if it was me, man, it ain't you.
Yeah, it ain't you. And if it was, trust me, you wouldn't.
And you wouldn't.
Exactly. You wouldn't. You trust me, you wouldn't.
In the NBA, whether they said it or not, that wasn't a good look for them at that time. Because you didn't really have the power part of it. You had holdouts. You had things, but not like that as a rookie. And that was, did it follow me? Probably.
How do you think your teammates reacted? Again, you're a rookie coming in.
They didn't know me.
But do you feel like once you walked in the locker room and played those 28 games how long did it take for them to adjust to you and to just get to that level where they respected you?
It didn't take long because, as you know, as a player, if you can come in, I averaged like 16 in those limited games. They had some big games, but they knew I could play. So once they figured it out, it was all good.
Yeah, what's so funny is like the locker room that's easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once you start hooping, like, no matter what's going on, once the hooping gets like, we just hooping, the talent takes care of itself.
Not unless there's a personal issue. Okay, so and I'll piggyback this with the Ben Simmons thing going on. His issue is personal with the organization, with certain players, and the city. That's harder to divorce even if he's playing well. Because there are going to be instances in the game or during situations where he may mess up and dudes is like, I still remember when you said that BS, before, or you did this. So it depends on, like for me, I never met my teammates. So they didn't have an opinion one way or another. It wasn't I didn't want to play with them, it's just I just wanted to get my money. So the transition was a lot easier for me to go in and even though I wasn't there the majority of the season, kind of eased my way in, and they embraced me. Whereas if it had been contentious, like, oh, I didn't want to play at Dallas, them dudes, sorry, they need to get a whole new roster. That's a whole different, no matter if I'm hooping or not, they still like, you call me sorry, man. You didn't want to hoop with me.
So you mentioned the Ben Simmons situation. From your perspective, when you look at that, how's this thing gonna play out? Do the Sixers just need to trade them, cut their losses, or can they work it out? And I want to ask you the same thing. Can they figure it out?
So what's the funniest? I have a relationship with Ben Simmons now.
Yeah.
And Elton Brand and them. So I'm in the middle on both sides, and I'm a player. So when it comes to the player part, I say this. I said, Ben is quiet. You know what I mean? Ben just wants to hoop. Ben works out every day, 2-3 times a day. Like, I watch him work out.
Right.
He can actually shoot the ball. He has great form and everything. So you sit there and say, why aren't you shooting?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as a player, it's like, well, is it this? He's not saying the system, but I know it's the system. It's the system itself. You got to put someone in the situations to be great. So I'm sitting here like, well, how come we don't put him in? Why you don't put him in pick and rolls at the elbow? If everyone's gonna sag, set the pick and roll right there. People don't understand. John Stockton didn't shoot. He didn't shoot. He set the pick and roll right there at the free throw line. Everybody's like, how do you get the free throw line? Because everybody's backing up.
Yep.
They set the little pick and roll. If he can shoot a 15-footer.
Yep.
If not, you hit Karl Malone. So I said, there's there's plenty of situations where you can make him feel great. You can drop him. You can put him at the elbow. You can play him how he wants to be played. But when you come out, I think, let's just say it, Doc messed up. When, he said, I don't think he's a winning guard. You got, as a player who, comes in there and we play hard, we do this, and you're going to say, you don't think you can win a championship with me, right? You don't think you can win a championship with me? All right, cool. Right. So, all right, I'm just going to train, and y'all going to trade me, and y'all do all this, and you don't trade me. Like, when I come back into this locker room, how this going to work? Yeah. Because, I'm speaking to, what do y'all expect when Ben comes here? Like, y'all just going to get there, like, oh, yeah, you know what you said, never mind. What's happening? Right. Like, y'all think that's really going to happen to him? That's like going back to jail. Like, that's like going back to jail. Like, the city don't want him. The city's already against him. The players looking at him sideways. So, what do you think is going to actually happen? What is the benefit? That he's going to average 20, 10, and 10, and y'all going to get some trade? Because I'm sure if he's averaging 20, 10, and 10, you're not going to want to trade him. At that point, it's like, at this point, you have to trade him, right? You have to trade him. You're only going to get 50% because everybody knows you got to trade him.
Yep.
So it's like, so what is the benefit of him? Like, when he's actually going back, what do you get out of it?
Yeah, and it's a tough situation because from the business perspective, Morey has to get what he can for Ben. You can't allow that prized possession to get away from you without getting some kind of value. You're not going to get equal value unless you get Dame Lillard. Okay, unless you get that.
But I evaluate it like this. I was always taught when you look at game, look at positions, right?
Right.
So I have a 6'10" player that can play 9 positions, meaning he can play all 5 on defense, 4 on offense, point, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if I want to trade him just for a straight-up guard.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how I was like, I have a 9-position player, which is rare. How am I I might get a better score, but I lose everything else. I lose everything else, and I don't know if that's a real value of work.
But on you got to think about it too from a perception perspective and what they can get. It's a win.
Yes.
Rather than having a trade for, and this is not anything on CJ. CJ is some draft picks. That right there. No, seriously, and how good CJ is. But a standalone, it doesn't make sense. So from the organization perspective, they still got time until February to the trade deadline to figure this thing out. From Ben's perspective, I just don't listen, Rich Paul, I know he laid the groundwork so Ben can understand what you gain and what you lose by doing this. Once you take that stance and you draw the line in the sand, that's it, okay? Going back in, I'm trying, and again, I don't know the conversations. I don't know what's going on why he chose. And I've heard the Sixers thought that he would be coming back to the facility later this week. He came back early. What the mindset is, because no matter what, at the end of the day, it's always been some contention in the locker room between Joel and Ben. from day one. It's always been there because the styles kind of clash. So they've been dealing with this for quite some time. This is not a new thing. It's just now that it's expanded a lot more because of what happened last year in the playoffs. How they coordinate that locker room is important because in the East right now, bro, the Charlottes, the Chicagos, those Indiana, those are not easy wins now. So you can't start off bad if you're Philly, if you want to be in the top 6 so you avoid the playoff. So you know, now the pressure is on. If they start to win without Ben, it's really not that much pressure. But if they start to lose without him and start to fall further down the ladder of the Eastern Conference, it's more pressure on them to make a deal. So we got to see how this thing is going to play out.
What's so funny is, as a player, you know that was my conversation.
Right.
You know, players gonna always kind of hint like, what would you do, right? And you know, like, listen, I don't know what I do because I'm not in your situation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? All I can say is this: if we're playing chess, you don't really have to move your piece right now. You know, it's not necessarily your move; it's theirs, because their first 5 games they should go at least 4-1. Their toughest matchup is, you know, the Nets. If they don't go 4-1, I mean, they look bad. You know, not necessarily you. You know, you're gonna, like, if they win without you, it's gonna be, oh, we don't need Ben, blah, blah, blah. If they lose, it becomes, oh, we need to get something for him now. So it's basically whoever's willing to hold out. But at the end of the day, do you really want to just let them take your money for no reason?
See, and
that's what they're playing on.
Exactly. And here is the dilemma. Are you willing, for what you stand on, to sacrifice not getting paid? At the end of the day, forget everything else. You can say all of what your beliefs are, blah, 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 blah. End of the day, it's going to come down to, are you willing not to get paid? To stand on what your principles are. Like, and I go back to it. It sounds great before it happens. But that 8.3 that he was supposed to get, he ain't getting it. The money that he's going to get per game right now for missing out, he's not getting it. So how long are you willing to deal with that, and how comfortable you are, even though you got money in the bank? But that's money you're not getting, and you're not getting it back. And that's the dilemma, that until you actually go through it and are in that situation and have to make that decision. Now, it comes back to this too. If Ben comes back, kind of like Kyrie, the narrative is, oh, you came back for the money. Wiggins, well, you know, I heard what you said, bro, but you ain't want to lose that $17 million either.
Yeah, it's. I mean, listen.
17 mil?
What I'm saying is playing in a place that you don't want to play. I don't see no benefit because his value's not going to go up. Nobody's going to be like, you know what? I'm seeing Ben Simmons today and he's looking great. Let me give you the house. No, you're going to get pennies on dollars. You're going to get 50% at best for him. So there's no play that he's going to be able to. He's going to be doing that. His value's going to go up. So at this point, it's, do you go there, pick your check up, calf injury, ankle injury. You can't play. I'm hurt. You can't find him.
Okay, but would you? Okay, and again, here's
I'm hurt.
Now, but Ben is a different cat in regards to mentality, okay, and how public perception may affect him. You a different dude, I'm a different dude. It's a different way we may approach it. Like, hey, bro, I've been in a situation where I lost money, and I ain't care, because my principle to me was more important. You know, I was going from Houston to New Orleans, and I was like, man, I ain't going. Like, what do you mean you're not going? I said, no, I ain't going to New Orleans. I ain't had no leverage. I ain't had no leverage at all. And Jeff, I'm on the phone. They're like, you mean? I said, bro, Byron Scott, the GM, called me, happy to have you in New Orleans. I said, no, you're not. I said, I'm not coming. They said, what do you mean? I said, listen, bro, I'm 33. I'm not about to start all over. I don't want to do that. Well, we gonna find you. I was like, all right. All right, but I'm not coming. So they find me until I got to Phoenix. But my experience is who I am, I'm willing to deal with that. Ben may not be able to deal with that mentally, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, look at it. You don't have to get fined. He's not
gonna get paid if he don't play.
No, he hurt. You gotta remember. Once you get hurt, they can't do nothing. All that is out the window.
Right.
That's what I said. You go in there one practice.
Lower back always get it.
Shit
You can't die in this lower back.
They can't check that.
They can't check that.
You know, but that's what I said. But there was no win when I tried to break it all down, and I'm sitting here like, Philly fans, there's no win.
No win. Even if he plays well, it's going to be a game or two where he doesn't. And it's going to revert right back to, we hate Ben. So it's always going to be this teeter-totter of emotion with Ben while he's there. Playing well, if he doesn't play well, it's always going to be this.
Especially in Philly, you know they're not having it.
Oh, what?
You already know that.
Not having it.
So you mentioned Kyrie before. Obviously, big news this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Nets have suspended him from play and team activities till he's fully able to participate. And talking about another guy, obviously Wiggins was in a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
He was on pace to pass it with like 16 mil, ended up getting the shot. When you look at Kyrie's situation, do you think he's making the right decision? How do you think that plays out in Brooklyn?
What was that, G?
Look, it's so hard to to jump in, the situation because it's so far and so left when it comes vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My question is going to be always this. If I went through the bubble, right, unvaccinated, I went through all of last year, unvaccinated, and now you're telling me I need to take the vaccine now to protect myself. It was like, well, the first two times y'all didn't give a shit, and I'm fine. So what do you how am I being convinced now? Like, why is there an urgency now when it wasn't before?
Well, there was no vaccine before though,
and nothing happened to any of the players.
but it's two different situations. It's two different situations. I will go with your argument if it was a league mandate, but since it's a city rule, New York City rule, San Francisco rule, that workers who work in that city have to have it. That's a kind of a different dynamic, with where Kyrie is at. Now, knowing all of that, Kyrie still chooses to say, I'm not going to get back, which is, I'm fine. Listen, bro, if you have your reasons on why you don't want to be vaccinated, whether I agree with it or not, you're a grown man, okay? Fine. But there are consequences that come with that, unfortunately, that you're going to have to deal with, which is not being paid. So it's two dynamics here. Kyrie's decision on what he wants to do, and it goes back to the organization. The organization can't wait. Sean Mark's job is to do what's best for the organization in reasonable terms. Allowing Kyrie to be who he is, you can't force him to do anything. But at the same time, I got 14 other guys that I have to adhere to give them the best opportunity to win. And one guy, unless it's LeBron, can't out-Trump. If it's LeBron, it's a whole different conversation.
You think this is a conversation if it was KD?
Yeah.
Do you think they'd be doing the same thing if this was actually Kevin Durant?
No, I think it's a bit different conversation. See, Kyrie's history also plays into this. You got to keep in mind, last year sitting out, personal issues, different things like that. It's not just one instant with Kyrie. The history of this young man causes people to pause a little bit more and maybe have some trepidation on making these decisions compared to a KD or a Harden who may take the same stance, but their past history doesn't dictate that they're going to take off. So you deal with them a little bit differently. But with Kyrie, because of that, they're looking at this, okay, how much more are we going to take? From an organization. And that doesn't mean he's right, they're right, he's wrong. No. Kyrie has his stance, whether I believe in it or not. It doesn't matter. He has to deal with the ramifications of his decision. And if the organization says, because of the state rule, we don't want you half the time, it has a bigger impact short-term, long-term on our organization, then we can't have it.
So with that ruling, because they're deciding that they don't want them for the 50%.
Right.
Right? Don't they still have to pay him though?
No.
Why?
Because what they're doing is, because the ruling is they're not going to pay him for his home games.
Yes.
They're going to pay him for his away games.
Okay, so he gets paid for the away games.
He gets paid
even though they don't want him.
It's their decision.
Okay.
So they're not, because he didn't adhere, and they're real specific, because he didn't adhere to the mandatory mandate of taking a shot to play at home, we can fine him. He'll still get paid if he plays on the road. So that's why they can't, and they're not taking that away.
But they just said he's not allowed to play on the road, right?
Right, but they're not going. But
they can't fine him.
But they're going to pay.
Oh
him
yeah,
for that.
then that right. See, that's the problem. Right there, they lose.
Who is they?
The organization.
How?
Because you're paying, like, he already made his decision that he wasn't playing at home when he didn't want to take the vaccine. Now he gets to sit.
But here's the difference, though. They're not going to. He made his decision he didn't want to play at home. He didn't say he didn't want to play.
Yeah, he didn't say.
Okay, so now, no, we're not taking half. Either you go play or you're not.
Okay, would you not take half, though, if you think that that's going to give you the best chance to win a championship?
No, but look, but think about it from a player standpoint. I know I wasn't going to play home games, right?
But you knew
I was going to play. I was going to play road games. But now you're saying, well, we don't want you on the road either.
Right.
But we're still going to give you a check.
Yeah. But you still losing out as a player because you still want to hoop. You still,
yeah.
But you still want to hoop. No, I get your point about getting paid, but it goes beyond that in this aspect. You're a hooper. Your passion is to play. Yeah, you're gonna get paid, but wouldn't you rather be playing too?
Yeah, but you got to think about it. It's still chess. So who falters first?
It won't be the organization.
It has to be.
How?
Because you're not going to win a championship with just two.
You don't know that.
KD and Harden can't win a chip.
Hold on. I'm gonna say this. Keep in mind, Phoenix doesn't get to where they got to if you don't have injuries with the Clippers and the Lakers. Okay? Stuff happens in the Eastern Conference with Brooklyn. Milwaukee may not get there. So we don't know how the story ends at the end of the season because of these factors. Okay? Now, one of the best, I think, rosters put together is Brooklyn. With the pieces they surrounded the superstars with. Now, without Kyrie, is it going to be more of a challenge? Yeah. But come June or playoffs, we don't know who's healthy. What if Brooklyn is the healthiest team? Lakers have their issues, Milwaukee have their issues. They're sitting there so we don't know yet. That's what I'm saying.
But do you take that risk? I don't know if I take that risk because you got to remember, Kyrie, he alters the game because he's a juggernaut one-on-one player. So when you're in half-court situations, you can rely on him to get better shots than James Harden.
Okay, how about this? Last year, out of, I think, 3,900 minutes, they played 202 minutes and still got together as a threesome and still got to the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh, no, it was nice.
Okay, so let's forget the history.
Yeah.
202 minutes. Their depth in rebounding wasn't as good as it is now. But yet and still, they were there to compete and beat Milwaukee to get to the finals. So you don't think management is looking at this and said, who's the most expendable player out of these three? Okay, so history tells us that if we have these two here, along with the built-out roster, we still have a viable chance to get to the final. Now, whether we win it, we don't know. But can we get there in the Eastern Conference with a James Harden and a Kevin Durant in this retool roster? If I'm the management, I say yes.
Do you, as an organization, this is why I always titter when it comes to organizations in the NBA. Organization, as the owner, you're my player, right? And I have to make sure that I tread softly with you. Because I don't, just like us, one little thing kind of just has us going, we want to be traded.
Right.
Well, the fact that KD and Kyrie are this. And when I say this, is you got to remember, if you look at the history, when one has a problem, the other one has a problem.
I didn't think about it like that.
When one doesn't want to talk to the media, the other one doesn't want to talk to the media. So if you piss off one, you kind of piss off the other one too. So I heard Stephen A. Smith talking about, trade him. Hold on, slow down, because that trade might irritate the other one also. So you really have to sit down and try to figure out, hey, KD, what's up? Harden, what's up? Kyrie, what's up? Because as the guy who's sit here paying these checks, I don't want to sit here and say, all right, we can get rid of him, and y'all be like, well, we're going with him. And I'm like, oh, never mind. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where they have to really, it ain't as easy as they want it to be.
But as an organization, it's one player in the league I would say that ultimately trumps all that. That's LeBron. all that other stuff. Now, the Lakers still made decisions on what they wanted to do. The league itself still made decisions despite the powerful nature of LeBron James. Remember this. The game must be played. NBA didn't want to go to a bubble. Players were against it. Guess what happened? They went to the bubble. The players didn't want the season to start at a certain time. Guess what happened? Season started when the NBA wanted it to. One more example. It was an agreement that it wasn't going to be an all-star game. Despite the loud voices and the guys, in dissension, LeBron one of them, guess what happened?
It was awesome.
So these hard decisions have to be made despite having somebody pissed off. Because we can't stop the train from running. Now, I understand the player side and I understand the business side. If I'm Brooklyn, I'm very confident right here that these two players with this retooled lineup, and if Kyrie at some point wants to come back and take his vaccine, better for him. You welcome back open arms, because it wasn't contentious like, I don't want to play here. I don't want to play for the organization. I don't want to play with these players. It wasn't that. So it's a lot easier to re-enter the locker room, the brotherhood. But I'm not going to stop that train. Kyrie, you got to make a decision, bro. If you don't want to play, you don't want to get vaccinated, I'm not going to make you. But I don't want you half-time. I don't want you half the time, because now it's a chemistry issue. We got stuff going on. What if, Patty Mills is playing great, but we go on the road and Patty Mills can't really play. We lose the game. Kyrie didn't play well. Then he comes back home. Patty Mills is playing great. And you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know how it is. You got that dynamic. And quiet as kept, that might be one of the best offseason pickups now.
Yes, it was. It was nice.
It seemed, at the time, it was like, it's great, it's cool, back up for Kyrie. But now, that move right there gives them that other ball handler, decision maker that they didn't really have last year when Harden was out and Kyrie was out.
Feels like they knew something.
But that's why I said I'm confident if I'm Sean Marks in the organization that I healthy. I think I can get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think I can get there with these two. That's what I'm saying.
It's just like, because I had a really great relationship with A. Poland, rest in peace. That if I was in Kyrie's situation, we would have been sitting down talking, me and him, everybody else. And I would have gave my reasons why. He'd tell me why I should. I would have asked a simple question: are you vaccinated? Is your family vaccinated? Like, what should we do? Who's the doctor that gave you the vaccination?
Right.
Those would have been instead. Like, I know you as a black man, you kind of scared about. Let's go. We gonna speak. Like, he would have went with me. We would have talked. We would have did it as a group. It wouldn't have been no isolation in the paper, and it would have just been me and him, right? Talking and trying to figure this shit out together. If he didn't get vaccinated, if you want me to get it, you gonna have to get it too. We gonna both sit there, same time. But that was the kind of relationship I had.
And that's the difference, because Gilbert, even when you came over, your reputation preceded you when you came to Washington. Okay, so that conversation and that relationship you had with Abe was pure. Kyrie doesn't have that. See, because his reputation of wanting to leave Cleveland because he wanted his own team, whether it's true or not. Then went to Boston. What happened in Boston? Wasn't at the playoff game on the bench. He wasn't here. The team played better. Ended up wanting to leave there. Now you're over here. So that follows. So he doesn't have that relationship with management and ownership like you, to have that broad-based, intimate conversation with, like, no, bro, this is what's really happening. This is how we can resolve this. You could do that. He can't. So if he's on the outside looking in, and it's a soft relationship. They respect each other, but it's soft. What do you think the organization gonna do? If he's the third wheel, and not in a bad way, but Harden and Durant are the two most important, and the third one is here, what do you think is gonna happen? It ain't rocket science. It really ain't.
So last thing I want to hit you on, obviously you have in the college basketball space. We've seen the emergence of Overtime Elite, the G League Ignite, and just traditional college hoops. What do you see as the future of college basketball?
Bro, it's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA... See, at one point, scholarship for play matched back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Once TV money came in, the value of the scholarship compared to the cost and what the revenues were started to go like this. Revenues, value to scholarship. See, players, it wasn't the inflation part of players and their money they were getting didn't rise with the same amount of inflation that the universities made money at. So it was always this outlier here where the university making all this money and the players' scholarship money stayed here. Mm-hmm. So you started to create this cavity of dissentment with players. And we're, why are they making all this money and we ain't? And now we got to the boiling point now where we're at, where the name, image, and likeness has come out. That throws a whole total wrench in recruiting. But the G League, playing overseas, throws a wrench in recruiting because guys say, I want to get closer and understand what it means to be a pro for a year. Mm-hmm. I can still get an endorsement deal, but go play for the G League over here or do this. And I guess it depends, too, because here's a prime example. College does benefit you in some aspect because when Zion came out, it was R.J. Barrett that was considered to be the number one pick. Mm-hmm. But because Zion went to Duke, was on national TV all the time, guess what happened? His following grew. They were enamored with what he did. He ended up becoming a higher draft pick, and his Twitter blew up and all these endorsements. So college worked for Zion in that aspect. Mm-hmm. If he was playing in the G League, he wasn't going to be on national TV. People weren't going to be talking about him like that. So you kind of got to have to piggyback that a little bit. But I think college is in trouble from this standpoint is that there are other options outside of just going to school to get to where guys want to get to. And the problem is a lot of those top players, the names, are the ones, and the collective bargaining agreement coming back up, may reinstitute guys coming out of high school. So all that impacts kind of where the traditional college business operation is going to go. It's not going to look the same. Because you got too many outlets for these young men to take choices of what they want to do with their future, and it may not include college.
I don't remember college when I came in. How was college basketball when all the high school kids came in? That 2001,
you got to go before that. KG.
But that's one player.
Well, Sean Kemp came before that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then KG, Kobe.
So how many?
Al Harrington.
Yeah, that's what I said. But you got sprinkles.
Yeah,
one,
but like I'm saying, it was guys who put their name in that didn't pan out. It was more than one. It was a couple guys.
You're right.
You see what I'm saying? They got it.
Because there was a couple local from my area that came in. I'm like, nigga, you
remember, Tyson Chandler came out. Yeah. So did what's going to he played?
Yeah, that was
Eddie Curry.
Yeah, Eddie. So that was my class.
That was your class.
Eddie Curry, Tyson, Kwame Brown, Jop Diop, all that. Yeah, see, that was my class. So. How many guys, like if they re-enter, out of high school, they open it back up. How many kids do you think is gonna be able to? There's usually only about three to.
But you understand?
Well, the game is so different.
It's so different now, and
it's so different now.
People get it confused. It's not a college rule; it's a pro rule.
Pro rule.
And a lot of that was put in place, just like the rookie salary scale was to protect veterans in jobs. Because you didn't want young guys taking positions away from veteran players. So this is an NBA rule, which I think will switch. But like you said, it's just like you change the narrative for a small percentage of guys that's really going to be able to benefit from. Now, today's world, because it's younger, guys want to get to their second contract a lot faster. The way they evaluate talent is if you're a 4-year senior, you're about peaked out. Mm-hmm. But if you're a first-year player, you got more room for improvement. So guys coming out of high school, if that comes back around, definitely going to impact college basketball again.
See, because when players talk about holdbacks, I tell them, I say, listen, hold on. Holdback is exactly what it is. Holding back. It's holding back your talent also, because if you were an 8th grader and you're getting ready to go to 9th, remember 9th, you're playing against 10th, 11th, 12th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, right? So you're battle testing. 8th grade, and you hold back, you're playing against the 7th grade that came up. So at that age, wherever you were, 14, if I say which 14-year-old would be a better 14-year-old, the kid who went to 9th grade. He would be a better 14-year-old than this 8th grade kid. You got to move that all the way up. So what ends up happening is when this 19, 20-year-old kid faces the 20-year-old kid who's been in the NBA for 2 years, it's shell-shocking.
Yeah.
Right? He loses hope. He really does. Like, I'm trying to figure out, I found one. I'm trying to figure out how many holdbacks actually became all-stars.
You know, that's a good one, too.
How many?
No, you know, I've never thought about it from that.
That's a good point.
That's a great point.
Because you got to remember, it's like Luka. Luka's 21,
Yeah.
right? When he came in at 18.
Maybe 22, but
18, right? 18 as an NBA player. You got to remember, he is the megalodon of 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Everybody else the holdbacks is juniors. So when this junior faces this year, whoever was a holdback, you're going to face Luka this year as a rookie going up against him. You're so far behind that talent. You can never catch up. It's like, you remember when we were younger, we're playing against older. That's how we're learning how to play. Today, they want to play against younger.
Just so they can get the ranking.
So they can get the ranking. And I'm like, that ranking kills you, because when it all settles, when it all comes back around, the guy is so far behind his age. The grade is whatever. The age is more important, because if you come in raw talent at 18, 19, you have a better chance versus being 22, and you have to be a proven skilled at that point. You got to come in averaging 16 to 22 as a rookie. At 18, I don't got to do nothing. Right? 2-3 points, hey, how you doing? I still got 3 more years.
3 more years, yeah.
And that's how they look at it. I get to learn. And that's what I learned playing in the NBA and understanding. Like, remember I talked to Michael Carter-Williams, and he's like, man, no one spoke about it, but it happened. He said, I win Rookie of the Year. I'm an older rookie. Going into my second year, they tell me, we're going to move in a different direction. We're going to go a little bit younger. I was like, oh.
Like, I'm still young.
I'm still young. But he said, he's 22, 23. To them, 18 is young. Who cares you're a second-year player? We want to go younger.
Right.
Because from your age, you're not where you need to be. Yeah, you won Rookie of the Year, but your age group, they averaging 30 already, you know what I mean? So, that's one thing that it's like, maybe if they open up high school basketball, parents were like, I need to get them out faster.
Yeah.
Who knows?
They probably need more, like you mentioned Luka before, and even the Euro thing, he's 15, 16 playing against pros.
Academies.
But same thing with LeBron, same thing with Kobe. Kobe's 13. Listen, you play up. So you can get battle tested early. You learn, this move don't work, this don't work, this don't. So you learn how to play basketball versus just doing the same in and out against somebody that was in lower grade.
Well, Jim, we appreciate you coming through.
Anytime, man. I love it.
Another episode of No Chill with Gilbert Arenas. We'll be back more soon. Don't meet us there, beat us there. You've been working on that one, huh?
I like that.
Practicing in the mirror.
I like that.